just popped up a sort of fairly thought-provoking title. I hope you don't mind. And I've sort of subtitled that really to really just get people thinking about what else can be achieved through business. What I'd like to do, I just cover a few things, give you a little bit of background, what brought me here. Pete, I'm not sure I was in big business, and I'm not sure, well, I know I didn't make loads of money, but anyway, I get the point, yeah, as you'll see. I also would like to give you the sort of my view on the way things are changing and what that means for business. So how it is influencing the way we're doing business, why it's important, what the business case is for this and the opportunities that open up. And then really talk about some practical stuff about what you can do. And honestly, even just this morning, again, listening to some of you, you know, what some of you are doing already. And it really is, it's fantastic to see the way business has shifted over the last number of years. So that's what we're going to cover. So to start off with what brought me here, I won't spend too much time on it because hopefully you've all read the newsletter last Friday. So I gave a little bit of an intro there. But as Pete says, my background is in sort of the corporate world, for want of a better description. It wasn't very exciting either. It was in the timber industry. So I started off as straight from school into the timber industry, literally in the timber yard, but got involved in sales, got involved with a family business. We bought some businesses. We did a management buyout. I became a director and shareholder of that. And then we eventually sold it, which really led to me coming to Oxfordshire. I'm not from Oxfordshire, but I relocated here with my wife back in 2008. And it was through that I was approaching my 50s and late 40s and I started to question my purpose. And I started to think that, you know, if I've got any business experience or expertise, then I really should be putting it to better use. So I took a significant change of direction. I took a very modest, humble role within the voluntary sector. I was absolutely staggered to learn about the challenges that we face locally, and we still do, pervasive social and environmental challenges. You know, who would have thought, well, there's poor educational attainment in Oxfordshire, or poverty, or homelessness, drug and alcohol issues, stuff like that. And I started to really connect businesses and charities, looking for support for charities. I set up the Robin Network back then, which some of you will know about. I still volunteer to help run it. We've got our first event coming up in September. There's no money involved at all. It's a network that brings organisations together across sectors to share skills and resources. And we've, as I say, about 1,200 people involved in that now. But it's where I really started to first think about all this sort of stuff. You know, I also saw a business opportunity and I set up my company. My first piece of work actually was working with what was the county council that became the LEP. And that was around sort of, so we've got businesses who need youngsters out of school. We've got school children who aren't really prepared for business. And it was that sort of cross-sector piece of work that I was doing first. I then actually started to work with the LEP and provide business support back then to social enterprise in particular. And it was through that I connected with the universities, and both universities. And at the time, they were looking to push out into the wider community support for social enterprise, which is now morphed into purposeful business as well. We connected with Social Enterprise UK. I represent Oxfordshire through that, and we managed to get Oxfordshire recognised as the first social enterprise county, a hotspot of social enterprise. And since then, I've also been on this journey around business as a force for good and seen some tremendous changes. So that's the background. Too much time spent on that. I also now want to just share a perspective, really. This is just a fairly simplistic view of the way I've seen things and how I see it. So if we on this screen sort of consider that, generally speaking, we've got social and environmental challenges, we've got the issues around us that tends to be looked after by charities, community groups and the public sector. And sort of traditionally almost opposite that, you've got people like us in business, with the exception of Caroline and perhaps any others that are involved in charities. But the other end of the spectrum, you've got private sector business that's driving the economy, that's creating the wealth and paying the taxes to solve those problems. But what we've been seeing is a shift. There's less funding around. So we're seeing charities, community groups, public sector actually now becoming more entrepreneurial and generating more income. We're seeing the burgeoning social enterprise, and great to see John here as well. And also we're even seeing public sector organisations spinning out and generating income. But at the same time, and this is the important thing, us in the private sector, not only are we recognising more our responsibility to help with this stuff, but also seeing business opportunities. So we're seeing this shift again from the private sector to take more responsibility and get more involved in those social and environmental issues in all sorts of ways. So really, that's the space that we're talking about today. And I just really wanted to just make a quick point about social enterprise. And Pete, I know you mentioned on the LinkedIn post once I was going to talk about social enterprise. To be honest, I'm not talking much about social enterprise, but it is an important point. There's a blurring here. Technically, depending upon who you talk to, social enterprise is quite specific. Generally speaking, social enterprises have asset locks, so they generate profit that stays within the business. You can take some out, but it generally stays. They plough the profits back in. They are enterprises, but they actually address social need. What we're talking here about is a purposeful business that is a force for good. And I have a lot of people talking to me saying, oh, I feel I should be a social enterprise, or I am a social enterprise. And you can be, and I'm a great supporter of social enterprise, but you don't have to be. I just want to give that shout out. So the way in which this is influencing business, first, just before I do, I just want to also give a quick mention of social responsibility, corporate social responsibility. I don't actually talk about it as much as I used to, but in my journey along this way, a lot of people talk about corporate social responsibility, and there's a lot of greenwash, if you like, or misuse. I think it's underutilized. I think it's not leveraged as much as it could be. I think it's misunderstood. And what we're talking about here isn't just corporate social responsibility. It goes beyond that. It's far more beyond that. The other thing I wanted to say is that none of this is new. I mean, for many years now, if you go back, people like Cadbury's and, well, this is Lord Leverhulme, as it was forerunner to Unilever. I spent quite a lot of my years in the Northwest. They built villages for their workers. It's not new, but it's different. I think that's the point. So what we're talking about is the way in which business can embed all of this stuff right the way through. It's not tokenistic. It's not philanthropic. The other thing that I want to just talk about, again, it's my problem, not yours, but people often talk about giving back. And when people mention giving back to me, my next question is, why, what have you taken? And I just don't believe it. It's just my thing. I know what they mean, and I know it's well-intentioned, but what we need is a situation where there's mutual benefit in this stuff happening. Now, the world and his wife will know about Simon Sinek, I know, but it's true that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I think that's really important. Listening to some of the stories there this morning, I can see why you're successful businesses. People connect with your message and what you're about, and not just your product or your service. So in terms of why this matters to business and the business case, what we're talking about here is a shift. There's a shift from, as directors of businesses, we are all legally responsible to our shareholders. That's the law. Companies Act says that's what we should be doing. What we're talking about is a shift to satisfying stakeholders, wider stakeholders that include shareholders, but it is the community, it is our staff, it is our suppliers and customers. That's the shift that's taking place. And in terms of the proof, this was a fairly recent piece of work, a collaboration between the University of Oxford, Harvard Business Review, and Ernst Young. And, there is a sort of it goes beyond financial results. Purpose drives innovation and transformation, and you do achieve better results. Here's some data from business in the community. You can sell more, you can attract more employees, you get greater employee satisfaction. Your clients, you can get a greater share of your clients' spend, and in some cases you can attain higher prices as well. My belief is that the time is right now. If you create value for stakeholders and not just shareholders, the profit, get that right, and the profit will follow. I do also believe that the stars are aligning. I'm not a religious person, but I've seen so much happening over the last 10 years or so. There is definitely a shift in the way business operates. We've seen, and particularly accelerated through what we've all been going through, the rise in conscious consumers. If you also think about central and local government agendas, now many of you might think, well, I'm not directly involved in this, but the government is talking about a more inclusive economy. I'm part of a relatively new Oxfordshire Inclusive Economy Partnership. Sitting around the table, we've got all of the key stakeholders in the county, whether that's local authority, the LEPs, large business, universities. Everybody understands that we have got one of the strongest economies in the country, yet we've still got these poor areas of deprivation. Now, as I say, it's not about philanthropy. It's about generating an economy that works for everyone fairly. The government's talking about building back better, levelling up. The Social Value Act, I'll just touch on in a bit, but that's an opportunity. The country and local government is broke. There is very little money around. We've got to be far more creative about how we make a better world for ourselves, both globally, but also locally as well. And I think there are opportunities for us to be able to do that. The voluntary sector is on its knees. They're having to be, there's less funding. They're having to be more creative, and they are. They're awakening to new opportunities. And again, it's not, shifting from going to businesses to say, look at this picture of a poorly child, please give me 500 quid, to a sort of a situation where charities are saying, look, we understand this is what you're trying to achieve, this is what we do, and we think working with you, we can help you get there. Far more positive collaborations. And this place, I've said it already, we have significant investment and development. We've got a huge amount of wealth. We've got such strong networks like this. I mean, it is incredible. We've got some tremendous initiatives. There is increased collaboration, and business can really help to solve these problems, not in a philanthropic way, but in a way that helps everybody. And I know I'm preaching to the converted because so many of you are doing this. So in terms of the practicalities, nearly there, Sarah, just before Pete coughs. So in terms of what you can do, I think where I would point you, first of all, there are a number of sort of movements that are involved in this. There's a few on the screen here. The one that I came across quite early on was the B Corp movement. And it came from America. I have to say I was quite cynical initially, but I got to know them before they launched here. I remember going to a tiny meeting in London. There's 5 or 6 of us around a table talking about how this might launch. And what I've since done is I've trained with them. I've become what they call a B leader. And I'm also now actually co-chair of a B local, the first in the country we set up in Oxfordshire, to really bring together B Corps, certified B Corps, and people like me at B Corp. So just on that, just very briefly what that is. So B Corp have a free online tool where, and I recommend any business, whether you're into this stuff or not, have a look at this tool. If you look for B Impact Assessment, it's a free online tool. It will guide you through ways in which you can assess your own business in all elements. And if you want to take that further and certify, you can do that. So to become a B Corp, it's for-profit businesses. This isn't about charity. You need to score a certain amount. It doesn't sound very much, but it's tough. Jamie Oliver was saying recently, I think his group became a B Corp, and he said he reckons they go through your underpants to make sure that you're doing things right. You need to change your governing documents as well. You need to embed this within your articles of association. This is, you need to be transparent and accountable. This isn't just lip service. This is genuinely embedding it in the way you do business. So this gives you a flavour. I'm not going to dwell on it. It gives you a flavour of the sorts of areas it looks at. The important thing to say about that is I recognise the fact that I'm amongst people like me that are small businesses. You don't have to be a big business to do this. The two colours, blue and red, effectively there's 2 lenses. One is around operational impact. So as we operate as a business, what positive or negative impact are we having on society and the environment? But the other is the impact business model. So there are people amongst you that are delivering products and services that actually themselves make a difference to the world. Anyway, that's what that assessment looks like. It's growing, it's global, it's huge. The waiting list is tremendous, but more and more businesses are recognizing this. So down to basics, how can you embed this? You can embed it within your strategy. We all know people want to work for organizations like this. Many of you are doing stuff to support your staff and the employees of your clients. But people want to work for organizations like this. People want to buy from organizations like this. So products and services, more and more products and services are being developed that are going to satisfy that need. Supply chain, this is really important. I mentioned Social Value Act. Social Value Act came in 2012. What it does, it obligates people to consider anyone spending public money. They need to consider the social value that's added to that contract over and above. Now, I've been doing some work recently with the University of Oxford. They are committing to add social value through their procurement policies. The Oxford City Council has added a social procurement policy. Now, we've got 33,000 business, something like that in Oxfordshire. Most, like us possibly, will say, well, I don't do business with public sector. If you aren't being asked these questions now, you will be asked, because those that are looking for or delivering private sector, public sector contracts are being asked these questions, and in turn they're asking those questions down their supply chain. Social Enterprise UK, I was at the launch of this a few years ago. It set up a Buy Social Corporate Challenge. These big companies are looking for ways in which they can spend their money that's going to have more positive social impact. Landsec is one example. They ran the contract for the Westgate Centre. They are absolutely nailing their colours to the mast. They're saying this is what our commitment to social value, this is how we're spending that money, and they are demanding that now of their clients as well, of their suppliers as well. We talked about, you know, people want to work for organisations like this. They want to buy from organisations like this. Increasingly, people want to invest in businesses like this. People don't just want a return on their investment. They want to know that their money is going to have more impact. And even only recently, Richard Curtis has set up this campaign. It's really getting all of us to look at where our money is. Where is our pension? You know, where is this money invested? Is it doing the right thing? So more and more businesses are going to need to be doing the right thing. Otherwise, they won't get our money. Interesting. I'm looking back at my notes here because so who was it? Oh, I've lost my notes. Who was it? Someone mentioned earlier, and forgive me, I've forgotten who it was, but someone talked about brand. Who was it? Anyway, no, doesn't matter. I was going to give I can't. But you get this stuff right, and you will have something that you can shout about. And I'm not talking about tokenistic stuff. You know, it's really important stuff. I've got to shut up for a second. Pause. This has stood me in good stead. I think we're all busy fighting battles or fighting fires or fighting battles in this case. We've got problems that we need to solve. If we just looked over our shoulder and did stuff like this, I think much of this would solve our problems. I'm a great believer in carrot, but this is coming. Watch out for this. I said before, we're all legally obliged to satisfy our shareholders. There's a lot of big business behind this. They want to change the law so that all businesses are obligated to satisfy stakeholders as well. OSEP, I haven't mentioned this, but working with the universities, I helped to set up this community interest company, which is there purely to support this, social enterprises and things like that. 2019, it bid for a contract with the LEP. So I'm right at the end now. It's delivering a program, a business support program, fully funded. It was the program that I was able to support Jess, that Tracy referred me to. So any one-to-ones, if you're happy, I'd like to support you under this program. If anyone's interested in this topic, I can support you. It provides one-to-one support from me, workshops, webinars, peer support groups. We've got a county of enterprise hubs. So you'll know some of these. Sophia in Didcot, Tap Social in Botley, Aspire, Flows in Cowley, the Eco Centre up in Bicester. We've got a huge amount of hubs supporting this program. So there's the contact details for that. There's my contact details. And I daren't look at how much I've run over. Sorry.
No, mate, you've done really well.